There is cannibalism, but they're Donners.
I'm going to keep calling him Dahmer
That's
the
fair.
whole time, okay?
It's fair.
History, I'd like to follow me down the rabbit hole. History, I'd like to, frankly, I want to know.
Welcome to HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody. Now this episode, the tragic story of the Donner Party. Now, if you've heard nothing of this before, the Donner Party is, in short, a group of people, and they are named after the Donner family, who were one of several families that were in a wagon train in 1846 headed from Missouri to California. They got hopelessly stranded over a particularly harsh winter in the Sierra Nevadas. Many of them starved to death, and several of those who don't starve to death survived by resorting to cannibalism. Now, if you have heard of the Donner Party before, the cannibalism is probably all you remember. This is one of those stories like the Titanic or a Kardashian wedding, right? Where the reason you're intrigued isn't because you don't know what's going to happen. You know it has a tragic ending, and you just can't wait to see how it unfolds. Oh, and I'm so lucky to have as my guest for this harrowing journey, my friend, actor, writer, and so much more, Andy Kraft. Like me, like the Donners, he too has made the long haul from America's heartland to the West Coast, but with decidedly less skin eating. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started.
I felt weird because I texted you and then I was like, I'm so excited. And you're like, me too, I'm excited too. And I was like, me too, I'm excited. And I was like, why
do we just keep saying that?
I'm really excited, but it's because I was very excited. So
Because this is exciting. We have been friends for decades.
It's a long time. Yeah.
Right? We've knew each other in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get the date of the movie. We did a romantic comedy that was shot in Minneapolis in the early aughts.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what year. Was it like 2006 or something?
Like, yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, 2005, 6.
I was in college, so
Yeah.
it's in that like range.
Oh, it would be good. We got to find the scene. We were in that
don't
scene.
wanna
We were like
watch
the
it.
funny best friends. No,
Yeah,
I don't think we should watch it.
We were the
beginning
same
to end.
character, but it was just a boy and a girl. That's all it was.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't end up together in that movie.
Yeah.
What a flawed script.
I know. Yeah.
But that wasn't the only time we worked together, because then the Science Museum of Minnesota, all hail, had in their infinite wisdom a budget for actors. And we were in a company of actors at the Science Museum that did a number of things, from portraying historical pirates, holla.
That was the most fun.
That was the most fun. We took how many ever months? Like 6 months of
the best.
research and
Just a
study
bunch of
and
improvisers.
rehearsal. And we just stood around real historic artifacts from the sinking of the Widda
Yeah.
and spoke in crazy accents and taught people how to fire cannons and make nooses.
Yeah. The only time I ever got in trouble at a job is because I got talked to, because there was the one room that talks about where the ship sank.
Yeah.
And I would go in the room and just pretend to be floating in the water like a dead body. And they were like, you can't do that
No.
with the kids. But that was the best job.
Why don't you go into the other room and teach them how to tie a noose?
Yeah, exactly. I also loved going into the room where they have like the pirates who survived, and I'd just be in chains, and
Yeah.
I'd just be yelling at people to help me.
It
the
was
best.
the best job. And this exhibit was like wildly popular in the very beginning, but it was like a year-long exhibit. So you'd work plenty of shifts where you were just in this like very strange haunted house with like a bunch of your best friends all pretending. It was very wild. But that job also, because it was a company, we were pirates sometimes. Sometimes we were individual drops of water.
Yep, we played raindrops.
We played drip and drop, and we were these silly like stuffed animal style heads
Yes.
of drops, and we would talk
Incredibly
to
attractive.
kids. Oh,
Just really.
really, the reason we got into
They
theater.
had
really.
yoga pants. I had to buy a cup for that because they made us wear yoga pants
That's
for
right,
it.
tight pants, and we
Yeah.
talked about the water cycle, and then we also got to drop water balloons from the atrium
That
ceiling, and right,
Yeah, what was that show called? I don't remember. It was the Gravity one.
Gravity one.
That one is really freaky because I'm afraid of heights, and you know how you like be on a little harness thing?
Yeah.
To the top, because you'd be.
I didn't ever tied myself into a harness. Were we supposed
I
to put
did.
ourselves into a harness?
I had one. They might have just Steph
Maybe.
may have given it
was-
to me because I was like, I don't want to do this.
They were like, he wears a cup with his tights. We
Yeah.
should give him
I
a
wore a cup
harness.
for every show, even if I didn't wear tights. It was the best.
You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, better safe than sorry.
I loved working at the science
I
museum.
did too.
It had dinosaurs, musical stairs. You could blow. We would light things on fire and freeze them too.
Yeah, we had to do fire tornado demonstrations. There was a real mummy.
It's the best.
It was the best job ever.
It really was.
If we hadn't moved, I would have worked there forever.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Easy. Loved it. And then you moved out here. I mean, it was really close to the same time. It was within a year or two of each other. We kind of tested the waters of LA,
Yes.
and then
Because we only did it for 4 months, and
That's
then we
right.
fled back to Minnesota.
And you were like, don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not right. And by we, you were talking about yourself and your lovely wife, Rachel.
Yes. Yep.
Came out here, tested it out. We're like, thank you, no. Melby and I came out and we're like, we love it.
You did it.
But then you came back.
Yeah.
And here are some, and you seem to have really love and embrace LA now.
Yes,
Like you seem to have
I
sort of
love it.
set down roots.
Yeah. I mean, you and your family are here, so that helps a lot. So we love it.
And you're knocking them out of the park. You're getting credits left and right. You tons of commercials. You may recognize Andy from your local wireless schlepping.
That's right.
Some stuff. You were not only on the very popular Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but you were there on their final taping, which must have been a really.
It was really fun. It was weird because everybody was crying, and I was just really happy to be there because I was on the very last day of the show.
But
like,
was that your first and only day
Yeah,
on set?
yeah.
So you're like, "Hi, everybody! I'm a big fan," and they're like, "We're all leaving."
It was like being at a really exciting funeral. Like it was really fun. I loved it. And everybody gave speeches, and I was like, could I say a few words? So I was like, I feel like we've been doing this forever. This is just so.
Oh, that's so funny.
It was very fun.
Did you take anything?
I should have. No, just a little bit of Andy Samberg's hair. That's it.
I
So
did,
didn't
but
want
he
it to
was
be
giving
weird.
it out. He
Exactly,
didn't
yeah.
seem too upset by it. And then this one, of course, tickled my pickle, so to speak. You wrote an episode of Pickle and Peanut on Disney Plus.
I did, yeah. So,
How cool is that?
yeah, it was really fun. That's what kind of made us move here because when we came out for that 4-month span, I right at the end of it got a job freelancing for Disney. So I was going back and forth, and then we were like, we should just move out.
You've got
there.
enough reasons.
It's fun out there. So yeah.
Yeah.
4.5 years.
4.5
Yeah.
years.
Bouncing back and forth between Minnesota and LA.
That's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
That's a lot of miles. And it's ironic, too, because we're going to talk about the journey between those two places and how harrowing it can be.
I know nothing about our subject.
I am so fucking excited for you right now, Andy. You're going to get fucked by history today.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm just really excited to get.
Have we mentioned how excited we are to
I'm
be
very
here?
excited.
What was it about the Donner Party story that intrigued you?
Well, you had thrown out Jim Henson. You had thrown out a couple. Can I say it? I don't know if
totally.
You had
Jim
thrown out
Henson.
Jim Henson. You had thrown out Tesla.
Benedict Arnold?
Yep, Benedict Arnold. And those ones, I know a lot about Jim Henson because I'm a nerd. And the other two, because I'm a nerd, I was like, yeah, I know that. But the Donner Party, literally, I had to be like, that's not. Is it Jeffrey Donner? No, that's Dahmer.
Oh.
And this is Donner. And I literally was like, I think.
Yes.
So I just thought it'd be fun to go with one that I don't know. I know it kind of gets a little. Gets a little
cannibalism.
That's all I know about it, though.
You know, I've been doing this podcast now for a little while, and I've had various people who are experts, and that's super fun too.
Yeah.
When we're both kind of jump. I'm a know-it-all. I love being the know-it-all in the group, and I love, frankly, being the fucker versus the fucky or like a co-fucky.
Yeah.
And I delight in delighting people with facts they didn't know. So this is going to be a joy. Now, the Donner Party story does involve crossing the Sierra Nevadas, and if I'm not mistaken, did you and Rachel not have a traumatic experience yourself whilst traversing the Sierra Nevadas? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we were driving through Denver, Colorado, and we were doing a trip from Minnesota to LA, and I had a little GoPro, so I put a GoPro on the dash to do a time lapse of the whole trip.
Hey everyone, watch this.
No, yeah, and we were driving through Denver, and Rachel's an amazing driver, but she was the one that was driving. I was asleep, and we were hauling all of our stuff, and we had a TV behind me, and the car in front of us had spun out on the road. They hit black ice, and they were facing traffic. So Rachel, as you do, also slowed down because there was a car, and she happened to hit the same patch of black ice, and we rammed right into them, like head on. But it's really neat because I was recording this.
Oh, God.
So I got to go back and watch it,
my
and
God.
because I was doing a time lapse, it was on super slow. I could watch it frame by frame, which was terrifying
Harrowing.
to see. Yeah, so My airbag didn't go off as soon, so my face hit the windshield, and then it bounced back and hit the TV. So I had a massive concussion. I don't remember any of this because we're very, very we're very intelligent. So what we did was we immediately got a hotel room, and I went to sleep for like 16 hours, which you're not supposed to do. But I was just very tired because of the altitude, I assume.
Oh my fuck.
But so I did that, and then so that happened. I don't remember our first 2 weeks here.
But neither of you went to the hospital.
No, what we did was we got...
You just went to a hotel and went to bed.
Apparently a rental car, if I remember, and then drove to
amazing.
Rachel's uncle, and then bought a car. So
and then got to LA.
Yeah, it's weird though because I have friends that I met in that first week or so in LA, and I feel like I've known them forever because I don't remember meeting them.
Oh,
they've just sort of been around.
And what month of the year was this?
That was
because it was black ice.
It was the best time of year to drive across mountains, which was January.
Oh, and even today, in a really good car with 4-wheel drive and air conditioning and heating and GPS and a cell phone on your seat, right before you get to those mountain ranges, you look at your passengers like, okay, this is it. Yeah. Here we go. Is everybody fucking ready? Because there's long, long stretches with no gas stations.
And just downhill. It's just
downhill.
so much downhill.
So much
and up.
downhill.
And yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, it is still a very harrowing journey. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about my sources for this history of the Donner Party, and then I'm going to tell you my plan.
Okay.
This is my primary source. It is a book called The History of the Donner Party, A Tragedy of the Sierra by C.F. McGlashan. For historians, of course, and for all people, your sources matter, right? This source is in and of itself a HILF all its own because it was written in 1880. The Donner Party was stranded in the Sierra Nevadas on the winter of 1846. So this book was written only 33 years after the event took place. So to give you some perspective, that's you and I's timeline from the falling of the Berlin Wall, the LA riots. So pretty contemporary, right? A lot of the people who were around are alive. There are plenty of survivors. And this was hot current events. Everyone was very aware of what happened with the Donner Party. It was in the newspapers. They were writing letters. There's been a lot of speculation, rumor, misinformation about the Donner Party that had existed prior to this point. This guy, C.F. McGlashan, interviews 24 of the 26 survivors of the Donner Party's tragedy. That's a lot.
It's a big party.
He is able to get letters and interviews with individuals who hadn't spoken to anyone else prior, and he treats the subject matter as so not tabloid, so not sensationalism. I mean, I encourage you to read. It's a great read. He literally is like, and this person is one has to understand their perspective. Let's not rush to conclusions here. I mean, he's just really careful and really empathetic with everybody's perspective, and it's absolutely fantastic. And one of the ways that he dispels the need for all of this gory, exaggerated, misinformation that people had started doing is that the truth is sufficiently terrible.
This is already blowing my mind because I didn't know what year it took place. You could have told me this is 1950s. I would have been like, yeah, it is.
Sure.
It totally is.
People get hungry in the 1950s. Yeah. Well, and it's not like shit didn't go wrong then too. This Donner Party story begins with the Oregon Trail.
Wait,
Yes.
With the game, right? You're not... Okay, good.
Yeah. And for those of you who have played the Oregon Trail...
Is there dysentery? Is dysentery going to happen?
Exactly. Dysentery. You just die.
Yeah.
People, malaria, dysentery, an Indian kills you. You starve to death. I mean, this is part of the game. For those of you who may not know what I'm talking about, the Oregon Trail was this game. It was invented in the 80s. It was one of the first computer games. It might have even been the 70s. And it basically replicated this westward journey from these covered wagons. And it was kids are like, hey, video games. Hey, covered wagons. But as soon as you'd start to play, you realize you're just going to die slowly. It's just a simulation of dying out in the desert.
Yeah, you go hunting and your family dies. Those are the things that happen. And then you have to cross a river and one of your ox dies. And they make you, if I remember right, they made you name the animals. And then they're like, oh.
Trixie's down.
Todd the cow is dead. And it was like,
why? Why did you make me
7
name
years
Todd?
old? Yeah.
Yeah, here's where the Oregon Trail started. We American colonists are living on the East Coast, of course, because those are the colonies. And in 1803, we purchased a vast swath of the western United States from France. Napoleon. Oh la la, très bien. 2 years later, Lewis and Clark hustle up a team and start to explore this area to see how far it goes, what's going on, what can be done there. We still don't quite have California and all of the East Coast because Britain still owns the British Columbia. They still own the Northwest. And Mexico still owns most of California and Texas. So, you know, but there's so much curiosity and there's so much legend and there's so much like hope for what might be over there. In 1811, fur traders start just fucking walking. Okay, we're just gonna go, and they got their pickaxes and their snowshoes and a bucket of water, and they're just gonna go out there and get and so there's walking paths that start to be worn by fur traders. The first wagon train heads west in 1836, and the difference between these fur traders and a wagon train is families.
Yeah.
Right? I'm gonna bring my shit. I'm moving. And I got grandma and I got the kids. This isn't just one guy hacking his way out. We're gonna resettle this place. And it was a big deal. So this is 10 years after the very first wagon train. This is when the Donners and their friends start to leave. Okay. And it's about 4 years before the gold rush.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if that was all happening.
So you know the team, the 49ers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it's 1849 is the year that the 49ers rush it out there. Yeah,
makes sense. Okay.
So they were called 49ers because that was the year everybody went. And it's 20 years. The 49ers is 20 years later we get the railroad.
Okay.
So the human beings who experienced the Oregon Trail, the human beings who did this covered wagon trip, largely did it between 1836 and 1869. Most of them did it after 1849. And the Donners head out in 1846. 1846 is like, okay, so we're early on. Here's what we got. The Oregon Trail has been cleared. Mm-hmm. Mostly of brush. People know this way. There's a couple of outposts. We know where the water is. We know where the grazing areas are. And we've got wagons know how to do. We're good. This is good. And we're going to make our money. This is the other thing with the people who are hanging out on these wagon trains. They weren't desperate, most of them, right? These are not like they're wealthy. Loading up, like they're seeing an investment opportunity. So if you've decided, I'm going to head west, I'm going to give this a try in 1846, many of the people who were doing that like sold their farms, sold everything, had a huge amount of wealth, put it in the wagon, and they're just like you and me and Rachel and Annie, right? Yeah. It's like...
They're just gambling. They're just they hit a ceiling in the East, and they're like, let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. It's human, why not? That's where people are going. So this is the Donner Party who's who, okay? As you and me get on board this wagon train, here's who we're traveling along with at this point.
They're like Todd Dahmer, Bryce Dahmer.
There's no Dahmers. There is cannibalism, but they're Donners.
I'm going to keep calling them Dahmer whole time, okay?
It's fair. You know what? Like, it's fair. It's like Little Buddy, Little Dahmers. Yeah, Little Dahmers.
Just call him Dahmer. Even though there's a book right in front of me that clearly says Donner.
It's all right.
I'm just going to hit those M's.
That's okay. That's okay, because it's, there's perfectly accurate, and then there's like the spirit of the note.
I know nothing about this subject.
Oh my God,
and
I'm
I'm learning so much. There's Donner.
There's Donners.
This didn't take place in the 70s.
No.
Everything about this is
But you should know this, though. You can stop me and ask questions at any point.
Okay.
So if anything is unclear, or if you're like, where is Jeffrey Dahmer at this point?
Exactly. Santa's Donner. That is related to this how?
Oh, God, you know what? Now that's what the cartoon we should
make.
Is the reindeer that feasts on their bones and then makes his way to the North Pole. Yeah, we'll work on it. Yeah. The Donner Party is named after the family of George Donner and his wife, Margaret. Okay. They are one of many families that constitute the Donner Party. You have the Donner family. They have like 5 kids. You've got his brother. He's got a few of his kids. You've got the Reed family. James Reed is at the head of this family. He's bringing a bunch of his kids. You got the Breens, Breens. Some of them are friends. The Donners and the Reeds left Illinois together. The idea is this is the spring, April. Mm-hmm. We're going to start. That means we get there before the snows, right? This is when the wagon trains leave. And then, because so many people are starting to leave, it's sort of like everyone gets to Independence, Missouri, from wherever you are in the East. And Independence, Missouri is like the edge of a cliff. Like, once you all giddy on up out of Independence, Missouri, whatever you don't have, you don't got.
That's kind of it. As far as civilization sort of goes?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So once you leave Independence, Missouri, just because of the nature of traffic, you're going to be linked up with people who just happen to leave at the same time. So at one point, there are, quote unquote, the Donner Party includes like 300 wagon trains. And the stretch, like if you were looking at it from the sky, it would be 2 miles long, just wagon to wagon, cattle to cattle, people. Yeah.
That is so much bigger. I thought this party was like, it's like
Huge.
a low-key party.
Yeah, no, this is like massive party. This is like pallets of party. And that is at the beginning, right?
Okay.
So they're moving together, and it is, as they go, things are going great. This is let's not forget, Andy, how fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? And especially you're thinking about these people are off the boat Irish immigrants. They are people who were born in the East, right? They are from Germany and Prussia and all over the world. And nobody's seen anything like these cliffs, the Utah, the red, and the antelope and the buffalo and the jaw-dropping gorgeous.
And what exact time of year was this?
This is April of 1846.
April. Okay. That's a good
Right,
time.
it's a nice time to go. And that is the deal. And here's the thing, enough wagon trains have gone. We know this is the right time to go.
Yeah.
We're not going to experience any snow.
Yeah, it's not Minnesota.
At the beginning. It's
You're
not,
not gonna-
it's not Minnesota. It's not
Yeah,
crazy.
snowstorm.
It's not crazy, right. And there's some understanding. Yeah, this is, and it must be the right time to go because 200 to 300 other wagon trains are all leaving at the same time. And there's safety in numbers. Because there's the Indians are a real, very viable threat out there. And this is one of those things where it's very difficult from 2022. I've talked about the colonists and white Americans' relationships with Native Americans at various times in this podcast. It's important to remember that in 1846, and certainly prior to this, it was something of a fair fight still between a white settler and a wagon train and a Native American. As we sit here now, we have been so chronically disrespectful and so chronically colonial oppressors to the native population of the United States that it's impossible to talk about it with a certain amount of just like, oh, God, that was rotten. So bad and so unfair and it's so unequal. And it's true. Yeah. In 1846, though, out there in the middle of the prairies, there was still a real threat. And it wasn't just that the native populations were attacking the wagon trains. They were stealing cattle, which would essentially starve you, right? So that was part of the looming threat.
And what, Oregon Trail took.
Correct. Correct.
It's a big thing that happened in
That's exactly right. And you've named some of those cattle. You've got
right.
Todd out there.
Yeah.
You give a shit about Todd. And so, but it goes out, they start out in April of 1846. It's fucking great. They are safe. They've got a ton of them, safety in numbers. It's the right time of year. It is so goddamn gorgeous. Yeah. And our friend Mrs. Donner, in fact, writes a letter to her sister that says, indeed, if I do not experience something far worse than I have yet done, I shall say the trouble is all in getting started. Oh. And she says later in that letter, I never could have believed that we could have traveled so far with so little difficulty.
I feel like that's...
And things were good. She's right. Things were going really good. In fact, she wore her jewelry every day. She has a double-decker wagon with a fucking kitchen inside. I'm not kidding. You can see the blueprints of these wagons. They were goddamn deluxe. They get themselves to present-day southwestern Wyoming, right before you get into Utah, and they hear a rumor. They hear a rumor that there's a shortcut.
Oh, no.
There's a fort there called Bridger's Fort. It still exists, I guess. You can pull off the road, get a postcard. And it's run by these two guys, Bridger and Vasquez. And they have been told, and they had heard this before. It wasn't the first time they had heard. There was a little rumor trickling up the wagon train that once you get to this part, this Bridger Fort, that there's a Hastings cutoff. And everyone's like, fucking Hastings, we know him. Lansford motherfucking Hastings. He's a famous frontiersman. He literally wrote the book. It's called The Emigrant's Guide to California and Oregon. He's been back and fucking forth a bunch of times. He has a cutoff. He has a shortcut. This is great.
Yeah.
Lansford Hastings isn't there saying he has it, but he said they saw the book and they know this guy. He's respectable. And these two fellas, Bridger and Vasquez, at this fort are like, for real, though, you should take this cutoff. It's great. And the Donners and the Reeds and those who were like knew each other, had left from earlier on in Independence, Missouri, had already elected George Donner as the captain. And they're all sort of electing, like we're voting and we're working together. But everyone's free to kind of do whatever the,
Sure,
whatever the
so
fuck they want.
people could leave the party that were all, you know, you do what you want.
Yeah, you do what you want. But like George was kind of the guy that was deciding for sort of this large group to an extent. And he was like, I'm in. I think it sounds great. We could save a lot of time. We could get ahead. Why not give it to fucking Hastings?
What could go wrong?
Most of the party does not take the Hastings cutoff.
Okay.
90 people take the Hastings cutoff. That includes the Donner family, the Breen family, the Reed family, and some individuals. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody in these families wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean that, there weren't people that were like, this is a terrible idea, but it's not like I'm a breastfeeding fucking mother with 3 babies. I'm not going to be like, you know what, honey, I'll meet you in California. Yeah. It's like, all right, I guess we're following this fucking guy. Now, so I said 90, 87 of them technically take off on the cutoff. This includes a lot of children. Oh, no. From the very fucking beginning, they can tell this is a rough goddamn path. Because even if the terrain is technically flatter, which it's not, it isn't cleared. So there's boulders in the way. There's trees falling down. Everything up to this point has had the wagon wheels are going in the wagon wheel route that has been rutted out by hundreds of wagons before us. There's nothing like that here. This is nuts. And they realized really early this is bad. And Vasquez and Berger had been like, we find out, the historians find out later, had a few other people had gone ahead and come back to the fort and been like, fuck this cutoff. It's absolutely awful. And they covered their notes. They wouldn't pass on their warnings. Because if this cutoff worked, they were going to get rich. They have a fort, a trading post right there at the fork in the road, and it would work out really well for them. So they straight up lied, straight up misled. They were not lying, however, about the fact that Lansford Hastings himself was 2 weeks ahead of him. He had just left with another group to go through this cutoff. So they were like, just keep going and you'll find him. Mm-hmm. And indeed, they found notes tied to trees that were like really worn and stuff from Lansford Hastings. But it is getting so bad that these two guys are like, this is fucking fucked. We got to go find this guy. Yeah. We got to ride ahead and like talk to him and be like, are you sure about this? So they ride out, they fucking find Lansford with his 2 weeks ahead of them party. And they're like, buddy, it is slow going. Have you noticed this? And Hastings like, for sure, you should not be doing this. But here's the thing, don't follow me. Do not bring your wagon train this way. As you can see, this is a terrible route. What y'all need to do is go that way. And he literally does just gesture and kind of gives over there, you guys should go that way. Also, he's never done this route, but he says, that's a better way to go. Definitely don't come after me. And they say, hey, you should come with us, come back with us and lead us. And he goes, okay, for like a minute. And then he turns around and is like, I absolutely can't. He goes for like a day. And then he turns around and he's like, I can't because I have a group I'm leading. I owe them. I started out with them. I told them I would personally get them through. So good luck. I don't know what to tell you.
Wouldn't you question like, well, are you leading them to the same
I don't, right. I guess they had fewer wagon trains. He was like, with the number of people you have, you just shouldn't go this way. It's much better if you go that way. I mean, this is what they're going on. So these guys get back to the rest of the party. These 87 people are like, he said go this way. Bottom line is, Andy, it was supposed to take them 1 week to get to Salt Lake. It takes them a month.
Okay.
Of hard ass clearing, hauling, working their asses off. But they're realizing, God, we can't afford to waste all this time, but we can't turn around. They are definitely past the point of no return.
Right.
So they get I mean, I know. It's terrible. So they finally get to the Great Salt Lake. Have you been to Salt Lake?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the city is a perfectly viable city. Mm-hmm. Have you been to the Salt Desert outside of the Salt Lake?
Yeah.
For those of you who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, if you remember the end of the movie Independence Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope you bring this up in every episode.
I try. The Independence Day is a reference for everything.
Yeah.
It is an alkaline, salty wasteland. There ain't a shred of life
It's super cool to look at, not be stranded in, but it's cool to go visit.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very beautiful to
see.
observe. It is much like being in the middle of the ocean, where you'd be like, boy, God, this is gorgeous. I'm going to die out here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a good place to die, but it's very pretty to just look at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can imagine hot and cold. That's you.
Yeah.
So they're on the edges. Now, right before you get to that desert, it's fairly good for you in the sense that the cattle are grazing finally. People are taking a breather, and they're kind of gazing out over the Great Salt Lake going, all right, so this Hastings cutoff includes us crossing over this thing. And Berger and Vasquez said it's 50 miles across.
I don't trust them.
I don't. What are you going to do?
Like
They said, I know there's something about them that
Yeah,
just
I
rings
don't
with
know.
something. So they say, 50 miles across. So that's what you should plan on, and that's all the water that you're going to need to bring with you to get across is 50 miles worth, whatever that is.
I've seen maps, so
Right.
I feel like.
Right.
Oh no. Oh man.
Oh man. All right, we'll be
Oh, my.
right back.
Hey campers, this is Bo Hufford,
And Meryl Klimo.
and we are the Campfire Shit Show.
We explore the human shit show moments of life, from weird sex dreams to family issues, spooky ghost stories, and listener questions we are definitely not qualified to answer, but we still do anyway. We cover it all.
That's right, sometimes it's just Meryl and I, sometimes we have a special guest crawl in our sleeping bag and join us in a magical shit showy land. Check us out every Tuesday on all the places you find podcasts.
And it's Campfire Shit Show with no I in shit. I mean, like, I do kind of put the I in the shit show, but it's like Campfire Shit Show.
Oh,
like
okay, Meryl, they got it. A Campfire Shit Show, that's SHT. Thanks for tuning in.
Good. That's perfect.
Fuck you.
Hey, before we return to the Donner Party, a reminder that we are on Instagram at HILF Podcast. Go there and see photos of George Donner and the layout of those deluxe double-decker wagons, and even buy your own copy of C.F. McGlashan's 1880 book. And of course, don't forget to
Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow.
your perspective out in the American West is completely fucked.
Oh, yeah.
I have GPS, a map. I've even done this trip in a car several times, and I will see a mountain range, the Sierra Nevadas, the Rockies, whichever route you're doing, and you think it's right there.
Yeah, that's 2 hours away.
And then you drive 85 miles an hour for 5 hours, and you're not any fucking closer to it. It hasn't gotten any smaller, and you think, I'm going fucking crazy, right? This is kind of what they're experiencing. They get out there, and sure enough, we've gone 50 miles, and we're pretty much in the middle. Because this thing is actually like 80 miles across.
Oh.
The worst of the thirst hits the cattle first. Now, this is September.
That's a great rhyme.
The first of the thirst, it's the cattle first. Yeah. Awake. So the livestock starts to go crazy. Oh, no. They start to buck and do that. They have to unhook them from the wagons because they're going to shake things off their axles and shit. So they, and the cattle and the livestock just like run frothing mad out into the wavering distance.
What? So they just escape.
And the Teamsters, because the Donners and the Reeds, like I said, they're wealthy. They have also hired Teamsters, people to just be a handyman, be the guy, and they're like taking off to get the livestock, but they're fucking thirsty too, and so is everybody. And we're starting to look around like, this is bad. This is really not good at all. James Reed is like, yeah, this is bad. So he gets on a horse and is like, I just have to ride out as fast as I can and see how far we actually are from water so that I can know where it is and maybe we can make a plan for what we're going to do next. He rides out. He finds out how far the water is. He's like, okay. He gets on his horse. He rides back and he finds that his wagon is just sitting there with his family and his Teamsters and all of his livestock are gone. And he doesn't know what to do, and his wife is in a panic. And by the way, part of the reason he and his whole family are even making this trip is because his wife Margaret is always sick. She's got like a chronic infection.
Oh no.
So they start to like, what are we going to do? Finally, he and his wife look at each other and go, we're going to pick up these kids and we're walking. That's all we can do. So they carry their children again across the next 15 miles at least till they get to the other side of this salt desert. They are like, fuck, holy hot fuck. That is really scary. And the Donners are there and the Breens are there and like the other families who have managed to get across, also equally bad. A lot of their livestock is also gone. They're coming together now, like, let's go back out. So now we've got more time.
So the Reeds are with the Donners?
Yeah, they've
again?
all caught up. Yeah,
It's
they've
gotta
all
be
kind of,
awkward when they got there, though. Just be like, oh, hi.
hi, I know everything's good.
Oh.
But that's also, Andy, you've exactly hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of fucking trouble among the people. And this book says, I underlined it, that the biggest problem the Donner Party had is that nobody ever agreed on anything. And I think that's saying a lot because the Donner Party has a lot of problems. We're not even halfway there.
Oh, God, this trail is like
This
the internet.
trail-
This is just awful.
This trail is so bad. So they get there like, oh my God, this is so fucking awful. What the fuck are we going to do? And they start, and there's a little bit of fighting. But you can't fight for long because we still, what I
they're
mean?
all
Just
hungry and
just
tired,
fighting like,
too.
oh my fucking God. And probably at least every once in a while, this was your dumb idea. I'm sure that exists. And you told me this and you have more than I have and you should be giving more than, who made you, all that kind of stuff. In any event, they finally manage to get what animals they can find and convince to come back. Get to the water source and small grazing area that they have on the other side. Nobody's died yet. Actually, that's not true. One person died really early on. It was one of the grandmothers who was already in her mid-70s and sick when they left, has died. But this is Oregon Trail stuff.
She's probably one of the lucky ones because the first one to die is going to be the most sad because they're like, oh my gosh, this is so shocking. And by the last one, they're just like, yeah.
Those
oh my
lucky
God.
fucks.
Yeah.
You just gotta lay down in grass and be like, not it.
Yeah.
But they're like, okay, so here. And they look out, where they're going and can't help but notice there's a little snow up on them mountains. And they're looking around at each other going, I thought today I wanted to die a little bit today. Like when I was so thirsty, I thought, this isn't good. Like, this is bad. This is bad. And everyone's starting to feel it in like the pit of their stomachs. So they decide, what we need to do right now? 2 guys are going to get on their own horses, and they are going to get the fuck to California as fucking fast as they can, because even though this is a new route, fur traders, an individual can kind of do it on their own, especially if there's no snow yet. You can haul ass, right? We're going to give them, we don't have a lot to share, but we're going to give them what they need to get there, and then they need to tell everybody that we're out here probably in Fucktown.
Yeah.
Somewhere between there and here, we're going to be there in Fucktown. So they send McCutcheon and Stanton. McCutcheon is a married man with a wife and family in the party, and Stanton doesn't know anybody.
Okay.
He's unmarried, doesn't have any kids, and everyone is real suspicious about Stanton. They're like, he's definitely the strongest guy. He should go because whatever, he's not. But how do we know he's going to come back?
It's true. It's going to be that married guy that screws him, isn't it? That's the Stanton guy's going to be the upstanding gentleman, and the married guy's going to be like, oh, I have another family now. Look at this. This is great.
I'm obviously marryable.
Yeah.
And they're like, please come back. Oh my God, please come back. Please, Jesus, fuck, come back. And please don't die on the way there.
That's
that
the
would
other
be
thing.
super. Good luck, you guys. And they ride off. The rest of the Donner Party is looking around at each other going, okay, there's about 80 of us. We have no idea where we are exactly. We don't have any idea where we're going. Pretty much we're forging this path for the first time all on our own. But the only thing we cannot do is stop.
Yeah. What time of year is this now, where they're at?
This is September.
Okay, this is September.
This
they
is
got through the
mid-September.
summer. So did they go through the salt in the summer?
In September. That was right before. So
Okay.
they went, June is when Mrs. Donner is like, everything's going so great.
Okay.
So they left in April. In June,
right.
she's like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. In July, they get to like kind of the mid, like, we heard there's a cutoff. There's
That's
this
where
like
that-
cutoff.
okay.
And in August, they take the cutoff, and it's supposed to take a week. And it takes a month. And that's why they find them, like what they, even if it's an unforged path and it's going to take a little longer, they thought that they would be there by August.
Right, yeah.
And it's September. And you also know, living in this country, that the nights get a little longer and the days get a little shorter every fucking day, even before it starts snowing and getting colder.
I think things are going to even get worse. I got a feeling.
I don't want to.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like this is going to go downhill. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Okay, so you could be right. This is the story of the first murder.
Oh, so I will say, I knew there was eating, but I assumed maybe murder, but I also was like, it's probably just people who died and they just did it. But so I didn't know there's murder.
Okay, this is the first murder. Okay. So we know one person died, the old lady died.
Right.
So
Or did she?
or
No,
did
that's
she?
probably
Yeah,
not a
and
murder.
they didn't even try to eat her.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
even. They put a rock. They made a nice memorial, laid flowers. They didn't. Yeah. So that was, like I said. I believe I'd have to double check. I think the old lady died long before they even got to the cutoff.
Okay, so she didn't get to the land of seasoning, the salt and all that. Okay,
No,
good.
no.
Okay.
Which is, again, good. Good
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Smart. Foresight. So we've got the Donners and the Reeds and the Breens and all these families. There's about 87 of them. They're on the other side of Salt Lake, and they're like, yeah, we got to keep hauling. And boy, howdy, this shit gets hard. They are pulling wagons with less livestock now. They have had to leave some of their wagons. Some even got like hopelessly stuck in the Salt Lakes because when it gets to a certain temperature, it like catches up in the tires. It was awful. They've cached a lot of their most valuable stuff, which is basically burying it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the idea is like, I'll come back and find this later, but you have to really hide it so that nobody steals it because everyone's aware that there's these caches. And you've sold all your shit. The only thing you have on your wagon is your most valuable stuff.
Right.
Stuff you love, stuff you need, because you didn't bring anything else. But as they look ahead, you actually can't carry anymore.
So they cached this stuff with the idea that they would come back to this horrible, shitty place to get it?
Yeah. Or
What
they
the
could
hell?
or they would send word to someone. I don't know. But you can't.
Maybe we'll make the return trip in the spring, you know? Or
It's a really nice teapot,
Yeah.
is the thing. I know I'm going to want tea someday, and teapots can be hard to find. You know what it is?
Yeah,
It's valuable.
okay.
It's mine.
Yeah.
So they cache their shit. I think, to your point, it's a tremendous act of optimism.
Yeah, they really are thinking ahead.
That they're just like, we're going to be back. Not only are we going to survive, we're going to come back and get our shit. So they cache a bunch of shit, and they're looking ahead because they've lost some wagons, but they've lost way more livestock than they have lost wagons. Which means, and the livestock is hungry, girl, and they have been overworked. So and this trail is rough, and it's getting rougher, and it's getting steeper. So what they are finding they have to do is unhook a bunch of animals from one wagon to double team one wagon up this sheer cliff or up this particularly difficult terrain.
Okay.
Once the wagon, the people, and everything are like safely at the top, you unhook all those fucking things, walk them down the hill, hook them to the next wagon, and now we pull the time, and that snow is getting brighter, and everything they do is hard and time consuming. As you can guess, tempers start to rise. On this particular incident, they are in the midst of trying to get these goddamned wagons up the motherfucking hill again. And at some point, somebody's fucking ox gets wrapped up the horn in somebody else's wheel, and it's getting tough. And this guy named John Snyder starts to hit the animals with particular anger, and he's fucking mad, and he's yelling.
I get you're frustrated, but I don't.
Right.
I don't
And
know if I agree.
he's losing his temper. So the Teamsters from that are like, hang on. And there's hot words all of a sudden.
Okay.
Hot words, according to CF. CF calls them hot words to me. And our man, James Reed, comes riding up. He sees that they're having this argument, and he's like, guys, cool it. Right. We can handle this. And John Snyder says, why don't you and me handle it right now? And he brings the hard-ass butt end of his whipstick down on James Reed hard. Bam, bam, on his head and his shoulders, gashing, and he's bleeding.
Oh, no.
Mr. Reed's wife is like, ah! She runs over, and she's like, everybody stop. She tries to get in the middle of it, and she gets one blow on the head and the shoulders.
The Snyder guy sounds like an asshole.
Exactly. And so James Reed comes up with the hunting knife, boom, stabs John right in the side of his chest next to his heart. John goes down. He bleeds out within 15 minutes.
Okay.
The Reed family, his daughters, his wife are with him. Oh my God, because he's bleeding and he's so hurt.
Yeah.
He pushes off his wife and his daughters to go to John because guess what? John's his friend, really good friend.
Oh, God, what?
Not just a buddy. According to C.F. McGee, he uses the word best friend. He uses the word fast friend. They knew each other from the time they left Independence, Missouri. I haven't found any sources that said they knew each other like long before, that they had like an old friendship. They were close on the trail, and in particular, what had made them really close was that John Snyder had gone to extraordinary lengths to help Reed get his cattle back after they were lost in the Salt Lake. So he had like ditched everything and really like struggled and helped and was like, no, I got you, buddy, you know?
No.
So they were fast friends. He's also, John Snyder, a favorite of the camp. He's handsome. Let me see if I can find.
Is there pictures?
You know what? There's not, unfortunately.
I hope there's just a crude drawing.
Unfortunately, they don't have the like photographs. There's not a photographer
Just
yet.
pull up a picture like Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
or
there he
something.
is. It's Bruce
There-
Willis.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you can picture him. I think that's actually
right.
the
Poor guy needs
best
some
idea.
shoes.
But he is handsome. He's 23. I want to find the exact quote.
I always picture these people being in their like 50s, but of course they're all like, 30s.
You know, but
the
even if
oldest.
they are 20s, they look pretty rough. Plus,
They're a bit
also
weathered.
at this point on the road, everyone's 65.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
But here's how C.F. McClashen describes John Snyder. He's tall, straight, and of erect, manly carriage. And his habits of life as a frontiersman had developed him into a muscular, athletic being. His features were cast in a mold of great beauty, such beauty as we rarely look for in a man.
Fuckable.
AKA HILF. He also apparently did a fun jig every night. I mean, he was fun. Everybody loved him. He had a bad day.
Yeah, he had a temper.
And I think it's fair to say it's already taken you a motherfucking month and all this shit. And yeah, he lost his to end the thing. And Reed is feeling this deeply. He is with his friend immediately and is still bleeding and saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And apparently John Snyder's last words were, I'm to blame.
Oh no, that's just.
But now we all got to stop for a motherfucking minute, don't we? So we got to hold the phone here. So the Donner Party has now held on because there's been a goddamn murder. And the only reason this goddamn murder happened is because we're all trying to fucking get their fucking things up this goddamn motherfucking mountain so we don't die. But what are we going to do with James Reed? There's no mystery as to who killed John Snyder. There were 100 witnesses. Everybody saw it happen, right? So what are we going to do with James Reed? There is one group of people that want to execute him, and they put up a gallows before this conversation has even calmed down. Because as I've said, there's been disgruntled and bickering all over the place, and the big beef with the Reeds is they think they're so much better than everyone else. They're so rich. They came out with the best wagon. They had the double-decker wagon, and they're wearing their jewelry and their dresses, and they've been aristocratic and treating everybody like shit. Let's kill this motherfucker. Okay?
Oh no.
And the Reeds are like, you know, and other people are like, it was an accident. It was understandable. Look, he's bleeding. He was getting the shit kicked out of him, and the guy hit his wife, you know. They finally agree as a camp to exile James Reed, to just kick him out of the party and tell him he has to leave.
Just him, not his wife and kids.
Just him.
Okay, because
And yet, you kick the man out, it's not like the women and children have a better chance of surviving this
Right.
shit because they're not out there pulling the wagon up the thing. They're not
Yeah.
out there hunting. They're not out there doing all this stuff. So they beg, and he says to them, I'm not leaving. He says to the party, like, fuck, I can't. If you tell me I have to leave, I'm basically killing my family. I can't do that. And they're like, if you stay, we'll literally kill you. So your family will still not have you. Finally, his wife, Margaret, is like, James, you got to go, buddy. I hate this as much as the next guy. Wow. You got to go. You've got to live, girl. And you've got to send help, baby. So your sole reason to live from now on is to get your ass to California and then get your ass back to us as soon as you can. Got it? Go. And Reed goes. He rides ahead. I mean, you can imagine. I mean, this is great drama, right?
Yeah.
He rides ahead to the Don. Now, the Donners, their wagon, you know, everyone's moving because you can't, frankly, go in big groups. So they're kind of in a long line. And the Donner group and their wagons are a mile or two up the road. They've gotten ahead.
So far, this should have really been called the Reed Party. I'm just gonna say.
Goddamn right.
That's
I
a
actually
lot
have
more
some
gripping.
suggestions. Reed Party is a great. I think that Snyder would have been a nice tribute.
Yeah, Snyder. Yeah, just.
Yeah, because honestly, so Reed gets up to the Donners and they're like, "Hey, James, what's cooking?" He's like, "Crazy." So I have so much to unpack. All right, so John Snyder's dead. I killed him. They were going to kill me. Now
I gotta go up front and get some. I'll be right back. I gotta go get something
I'd
from
love to
California.
stay. So he's like, yeah, he tells them what happened.
Okay.
And the Donners are like, fuck. Right? Sounds like kind of understandable, though.
Yeah.
And a guy named Heron hears about it and is like, you know what? You're not going alone. I'll go with you. I'll get on a horse, too. Me and you, I'll be with you. We'll get all the way to California.
I'll also leave my wife and kids. I'll make the sacrifice.
Actually, I think this guy was a single guy. And also, frankly, the single guys were like, why are you... I can go a lot faster.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, well, I'll go with you. So these two guys go. And you can imagine there's one of the best things about this source, Mr. C.F. McGlashan's book here, isn't just that he has met with, interviewed, and gotten correspondence from a bunch of the survivors. It is that he has the benefit of diaries.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the kids were like, yeah, here's my dad's diary. And he was able to do the shit I would have loved to have done, which is that day-by-day corresponding, who said what, when, and where things went. Sure. And because we have a lot of these journal entries, we know that Reed's daughters were going through emotionally after he left. Oh, they were like, fuck. You know, I mean, it's not like things were great up to this point. But they miss their dad and they're super scared. And they see little bits of evidence. He leaves like notes on trees. He ties strings to branches. They find his fire sometimes,
cool.
And they'll lay by the fire where he had been the night before. The subtext to the Donner Party is and then. Uh-huh. So now I told you how hard it is to get all this fucking shit. They keep losing animals. Sometimes they die. Sometimes the Indians steal them. Sometimes they just wander off because even the animals are like, fuck this.
Right.
Right? And just things are getting darker and bleaker. And they're also starting to do a count of provisions. And they're running out of food. So they've already gotten everything everyone has to eat, comes together, and now we divvy it up equally among everyone. And they're all getting small portions. The animals are starting to visibly fall, like they're struggling. They know they're going to lose them, so everyone has to walk.
Okay.
So only the children who actually can't walk are able to ride in the wagons, and everyone else has to start walking to spare the animals the extra weight. Sure. And we have our first starvation death.
Oh, no. Those are the worst ones in Oregon Trail.
Because it takes so long. Oh. It is another older fella. He's in his 70s. His name is Hardcoop.
That's a great name.
Yeah, I know. He was traveling.
Hardcoop?
Hardcoop. He was from Belgium. And he was alone. And he was planning on going out to California and getting some money and then going back to Belgium. And he was riding with a guy named Louis Kessberg, who you're going to hear from again. He's got a 22-year-old wife who has had a baby on the trail.
Wow.
They left with a 3-year-old. She had a baby on the trail that is apparently doing fine. She's breastfeeding the baby. And Kessberg had been, Hardcoop had been riding in the Kessberg wagon. And Kessberg's like, get out.
Wow.
Because everyone is.
Just to, yeah.
Again, and
because everybody has to walk.
Everyone has to walk. The kids are walking. The women are walking.
Yeah.
You have to walk too. And eventually he just sits down.
Yeah.
And there's journal entries and letters that are like, he sat down and watched us go on. And no one could go back for him. And no one could save him. And there's just sort of like a marker by the side of the road. But to your point with the old lady, this is that lucky bastard.
Yeah. Can you imagine just being like, I'm just going to sit here?
Yeah.
Like that's, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And the perspective of people who have now been together. Now, maybe they hate each other, but there's also some love there, right? Because you've been through some hard shit that you just go, yeah, I can't help you and I can't stay with you. And if you're going to sit down and die, all I can do is blow you a kiss on our way over that hill. Holy shit, right? They're starting to divvy up small amounts of food, and everyone's pretty sure we're going to starve to death out here. And then dun 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 dun. Stanton is back.
Hey. I knew it.
You did. You called it.
He just...
You called it. I tipped my hand too much.
Just Stanton?
Just
Not
Stanton.
the other...
But I will tell you this, McCutcheon is too sick to get back, but he hardly made it. We'll cut him some slack. We'll hear from him.
Real sick at the brothel?
Yeah, exactly. He's got an itch. But we'll hear from him again. He's not entirely out of the picture. But yes, the only one to come back is Stanton. But Stanton, girl, he comes over like Gandalf.
Wait, by himself?
He actually comes with 2 native guides. So here's Stanton got to Sutter's Fort. That's that's the place. That's the place that has the thing. That's where all the wagon trains are heading out there.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
That's safety. And Sutter, Stan's like, oh my God, it's really bad. And I need as much stuff as you can get so I can go back and help these guys. And Sutter is like, anything you need. That sounds fucking awful. Right? You take whatever. So he sends him with 7 mules loaded down with food and flour, 2 friendly Native American guides to go out there with him. And like I said, like Gandalf coming over the hill there, girl, we see Stanton coming back and everyone's like, fuck, yes,
awesome.
Right? And there was also like one guy, there's another guy who's dead. His name is Wolffinger. And that is another strange one. Here's what happened with
Why
Wolffinger.
did they end on the Donner Party? This should be any of these other
couldn't
names.
agree with you more. I think that we need like a complete rebranding because here's so right before Stanton comes, here's what happened on the trail. Because keep in mind, there's a lot of language. There's Irish, there's German, there's Belgian, there's all these people. The 2 German mamas, of course, are friends. They didn't leave together, but they're like, oh, we're both German. Yeah. So you've got Mrs. Kessberg. She's the 22-year-old gal who had a baby and a 2-year-old on the trail. And you've got Mrs. Wolffinger. She's also about 20. She's got a couple kids. They're all from Germany. And they're walking together. They get to camp. And all of a sudden, they're like, where are our husbands? Oh, no. That's weird. And they kind of look and they're like, they were behind us. They were really far behind. But they should be here by now. And right about the time that people are like, oh, fuck, somebody's gotta walk back and see where these guys are, here comes Kessberg. Louis Kessberg by himself. And he's like, yeah, Wolffinger is right behind me. And he's gonna be coming around the corner any second. And they sit down and they have their camp and Wolffinger does not arrive. So the next day, these 2 guys, Reinhardt and Spitzer, go down the trail and they find Wolffinger's wagon and like one of his ox, but no him. And they come back with the ox and the thing, and they're like, sorry, Mrs. Wolffinger, we don't know where he is. And some people are like, I think Kessberg killed him. And other people are like, why? Why would you kill someone? They weren't fighting or anything. He wouldn't have taken any. Anyway, and Mrs. Wolffinger is like, probably an Indian got him. Anyway, on we go. I mean, she's sad. Like, she's not in a great place. But she's also like, it's not like we're going to go find him. It's not like we're going to go get him. So she takes control of her wagon and keeps going, okay? So now Stanton.
Is he in Casper?
I mean, right? We'd have to, like in Jaws, we'd have to cut him out, look for license plates,
Oh, no.
Wolffinger.
Just so many cans.
Nobody knows. So, but they're not quite hungry enough to be eating each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he brought flour and everything.
So Stanton comes. Oh my gosh. But it was like, boy, people are dropping dead, and we don't even care. Stanton comes.
Yeah.
Ha.
Savior.
Now, because we have the hindsight of history, you and me, we know all the things. The first fuck up, the first big, fat motherfucking fuck up that sent the Donner Party into the dark pages of history was that Hastings cutoff. That seems obvious, right? It's not a shortcut. It's a long cut. You're all going to die out there. If the fortunes of the Donner Party are going to change ever, they have very few places in their timeline where something significant could have saved them, and this is the last one.
Oh, no.
Stanton arrives with the mule, the food, the mules, 7 mules, the food, the flour, 2 native guys. The feeling that washed over these people had to be like a morphine drip, like, we're not gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
So they do what you do, which is you sit down for a minute and you eat. And you let the cattle graze. And you let the fire burn for a second. You make a plan. You make a new plan. Now that we're gonna be okay, let's make a new plan. And they fuck up because there's a storm coming. Oh, no. And all historians agree that if the Donner Party had just fucking moved that night,
Oh, no.
if they could have gotten just 5 more miles, 1 more pass under their wheels before they settled in, there was a chance that they could have gotten out of this before the winter storm that ultimately locks them into the mountain range. But instead, they take 1 day to be slightly glad they're not going to starve to death that night.
Oh, this isn't a happy story.
I think, you know what, in addition to the word Donner, I think party's the wrong word.
Right, there's everything about this is just wrong. Okay?
I mean, couldn't we call it the Donner / Reed shit show?
Yeah. Just tragedy, not party.
They have. Now, see, if you read the longer title here,
Yeah.
it does say A Tragedy of the Sierra. It's not great.
I'm
but
not
listen,
reading anything. I thought this was Dahmer until like 40 minutes ago. Come on.
Oh, my God. Well, here's the thing with this particular story is that is where we are ending for now.
Okay.
Okay, because we
gosh.
are. I know. I wanted to do the Donner Party in 2 parts because when I got to know the story of the Donner Party, the fact is it gets way more human and beautiful and empathetic when you take the time to know these people and to hear their stories side by side.
Absolutely.
And in the second part that we're going to jump into next, we're really going to roll around in how bad it gets. Because this part of the story where we're ending right now, everything that's happened up to this point is the Donner Party. That's the Donner Party. You could have a little party. People,
Yeah.
the kids still have toys.
Well, that right there.
There
is
was a
just-
good start and some beautiful views.
There's letters going back and forth.
Where'd the
I
letters?
mean, that's
There's been a hopeful return.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. But when we come back, we are going to rejoin the Donner/Dahmer party with the part that you remember from high school.
I don't remember any of this.
that some people maybe remember. I feel like here's what I remember. I feel like in high school, when you were talking about westward expansion,
I'm sure.
the teacher mentions the Donner Party, and maybe they go and people are like, "Oh, cannibals."
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Tell me about when they ate each other. And then your high school teacher goes, "No, God, it was so bad they had to eat each other. I'm not going to go into the gory details." That's where I'm going to go. Yes. Deep into the gory details. Do you have any questions before?
I have so many questions, but I can't think of it. No, where does Jeffrey Donner come in? No, I don't think I have any.
Okay, part 3.
So yeah, that's how it goes in the future. This is riveting. I feel like I'm just sitting here staring at you as you talk.
It's so
because this
interesting,
how
isn't it?
is there's a movie, right? Or a TV show. There has to be
Here's
something
the
on
fun. Now,
this.
can you just imagine? Of course there is. And
Yeah.
can you imagine? I want you to picture the cover art of the Donner Party movie.
I mean, I assume it's a
Yeah,
bunch of wagons.
It's just sort of a bunch of wagons,
It's-
or it's like the one I saw was like white, and then just like a figure dragging somebody by their leg like through the snow. Because it's either gonna look kind of like Fargo,
yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
it has a real Fargo backdrop, and that's fair. Because it does feel at times like this is a horror movie. That the Donner Party is a horror movie of murder and cannibalism. And it kind of is. But I'm telling you that the story is about human survival
Yeah.
and hope and the tenacity of the human spirit.
It's like Lord of the Rings if it was a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's just you relate, and instead
Also,
they
if
all
I'm not
die.
mistaken, didn't the orcs eat each other?
Yeah, they totally did. Yeah.
So there's a lot
because
of
they
lines
were
to be drawn.
they were going on a trek through Middle Earth, and it's just
Fucking plagiarist.
They probably just ate all the animals first, though. I mean, they're
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think like orcs probably taste way worse than
I'm sure there's an orc named Wolffinger or whatever. That totally sounds like it's Lord of the Rings.
It does. All right, we'll dig deep on this. I'm gonna give you like a palate cleanser, like a shot of whiskey,
Okay.
and then and some food so that we don't start to
I
look
hope-
appetizing to each other.
I'll admit, I wanted to either bring barbecue or turkey. Those are the two things. But,
Yeah. Next time.
okay, yeah.
Oh, indeed. Next time. I mean, all this talk of cannibalism. Dawn, where's the beef? Well, come back for the Donner Party Part 2. Will our guy Stanton survive to be rewarded for his bravery? Will the Reeds ever reunite with their exiled father? Who is the first to eat and be eaten? This and more is revealed when we come back. In the meantime, our theme song was composed and performed by Kat Perkins, and a reminder that you can find all my sources, links to the books, documentaries, and articles I reference in the summary of this episode or by emailing us, hilfpodcast@gmail.com, or messaging us on social media @hilfpodcast. This has been Hilf, History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody, reminding you that history is a party, and everybody's coming.